Hey, do you want a clear understanding of how to address the questions during the certification? What are the tips and tricks to make sure that your answer is correct? If you want to know that, see the this part of the video. So if you're not yet subscribed, do so. This is our YouTube handle, and become a cloud kernel member. It will give you access to lot more content. So let us look at final exam survival rules. First is read the last line of the question. The last line has a lot of information. Many times, that is the crux that exactly tells you what it is looking for. Second is eliminate answers with manual steps. Manually go through one by one. First, no, as a thumb or as a uh, rule, what I do as a thumb rule, I just quickly whiz through all the options A, B, C, D. At least one you will find very silly and stupid option, so you can flag that out. Okay, usually in this certification exam, associate, you will find at least two where you will be very clear that hey, this is definitely wrong, and one of them is stupid and silly. Okay, then the third rule, which is very valuable for the exam, choose managed plus simple plus cost effective solution. Okay, so if there are options where you can create custom solutions versus managed, go for managed. If there is the same thing can be done in a simple way versus a complex way, go in the simple way. If the same thing can be done in cost effective way or in an expensive way, go for cost effective way. The last is trust the AWS best practices, not real world shortcuts. See, many times in the real world, if you are working in projects, you take some shortcuts, but that may not be the best practice suggested by AWS. So AWS looks for best practices. So go by the best practices that has been taught to you, or if you go through the user guides of AWS, you will see a lot of those best practices. For example, 7 pillars and so on. Okay, what is the keyword trap? Normally, we see a lot of questions which will say, hey, choose something, give an answer which is least operational overhead. Okay, they always say least operational overhead. What does this mean? Is see, this phrase is pure AWS psychology. Trap here is, for example, you will get some options like we will use EC2 with custom scripts, or we will use self managed databases. The correct answer in this case would be whenever you are questioned around least operational overhead, you should look for answers containing Lambda, DynamoDB, S3, RDS. When you are choosing RDS, you should not choose self-hosted database. You go for managed services. So the key here is managed services always win. Okay. Now, operationally, DynamoDB is fast and that is also managed. A lot of times, keeping the files in S3 is operationally the best solution. Or if there is some archive kind of questions and archive and retrieval kind of questions, then S3, the different classes of S3 will fit well, and so on. So this is one trap. So we discussed one trap where they will ask you about least operational overhead and they will just throw EC2 with custom scripts, some self-managed databases, and so on. Okay, so your answer should be you should be looking for these kind of options. Okay, for more of such content, become a member, cloud kernel member. A lot of information is put there and we keep putting a lot of content there. Okay, so that is important to elevate your chances to clear certifications. Plus, if you are also looking to learn trading, we put a lot of videos there for trading also. If you want to learn trading, intraday trading, make some money, or stock investment, etc. So we just try to analyze some data points and then uh, we try to put that. Now the next thing is you will see trick words is encryption wording tricks. Okay, so this is also another trick that AWS uses. What they do is, see, first of all, always remember AWS will love subtle security wording. In the questions, you will see something Then prominently they are not saying, hey, you know what, security is that important, make sure that your data cannot, your PII is safe, and so that kind of stuff they would not say. They would say it very subtly. They make sure that data is protected, or some subtle words. So trap is it. They will throw some options like choose SSL with when encryption at rest is required. So you know that encryption at rest will work fine, but still they would confuse you with the SSL option. So what in such scenarios, what would be correct or prudent to do? So you should understand the difference between at rest and in transit. In transit, while suppose data is moving from point A to point B, this is suppose server A and this is server B. Now data is moving this way. Like this is in transit. There TLS SSL is useful. But once data is sitting here in the database, then this is all about data at rest. So KMS and SSE is useful. So always match encryption type to the requirement. Understand whether they are talking about in transit or rest. Okay, so we looked at one more encryption wording tricks. We looked at that. Uh, then let's look at one more in this part. So monitoring versus auditing. Now, a lot of times it is confusing where we should use CloudWatch and where we should use CloudTrail. This happened with me also in 2019 when I started preparing for cloud certifications. That was my first entry into the cloud world, and I used to get very frustrated. Sometimes CloudWatch works, sometimes CloudTrail works. Okay, so this is another trap, monitoring versus auditing. This is another trap. So what to do for this? Many candidates mix this up. The trap is they will throw an option like use CloudWatch for tracking user activity. That kind of option they will throw. So what is correct? Before you know what is correct, like I always say, boss, cloud kernel, become a member for a very small premium. You gain access to so much of content there. It will elevate your chances of clearing certification. So the correct answer is, see, let me show you the need. So I'm putting in the need here and the service. So if you are looking for performance monitoring, then CloudWatch is a solution. For example, your need is that performance should be top notch, whether it is happening or not. So that means you have to watch something. What are you watching? You are watching performance. But if you're looking for a user activity or how many times API calls were made and those kind of stuff, then Cloud Trail is the thing. Trail means you are trying to, when you walk, there is a trail, uh, and you walk on that trail. So here also we try to monitor the people's activity using, so that's why the name is trail, because that way we can understand the user activity. um, it's like auditing. So, okay, so the next is load balancer type confusion. So sometimes what happens is they will give you some options for which you will confuse what type of load balancing to be used. So classic exam trap they will do is they will put some options, will throw on you that choose ALB for non-HTTP traffic. Okay, so what should be the correct option here? If you see, I'm putting the traffic type and what type of load balancer we use. So for any HTTP, you should always use ALB. Any HTTP, HTTPS. For TCP, UDP, NLB. For legacy EC2, CL. This is very rare. Nowadays, we don't get CLB questions, but one or two if it comes. So be prepared for that. See, if low latency or static IP is required, go for NLB. That is something which you should know. Okay, so now here we covered load balancer type confusion. So we covered some tips around four areas: least operational overhead, encryption wording tricks, monitoring versus auditing, and load balancer type confusion. We looked at four things. Okay. So we might post a couple of more videos on these kind of detailed tips. So if you have not yet subscribed, do so. This is the YouTube handle at the bottom, and become a cloud kernel member. Very small premium, but you gain access to so much of additional content. See you in the next part.